Victor Rojas joining us, who was in town. I think his first appearance in College Station. How was that
Oh,
experience for you, Victor?
it was awesome. I didn't know what to expect. It was a little bit bigger town than I anticipated. I live in North Texas. Gosh, we have lived there twice. The last time from 2014 until last year when we moved to South Florida. And, I'd heard all the things about Bryan College Station and the like, and I thought it was a small college town, but it surprised me. The size of the campus, everything about it was fantastic. Had a great weekend.
And that atmosphere at Olson, because you saw some ups and downs with injuries and interesting pitching moments, but obviously the climactic victory at the end, you saw it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was, obviously A&M is a team to be reckoned with in the College World Series going into this weekend. I thought they were on paper the most dominant team of the two, whether it was on the pitching side or on the offensive side, even on the defensive front. But things happen through the course of a long season, course of a short little super regional. You never know what's going to happen. And it was unfortunate it happened in the first inning with Braden going down in Saturday's game, and then of course you had the injury to Sadoa in Game 2 early on as well. So somehow, some way, as Coach Schlossnagle and even Jace Lavalette on Friday telling us that it's not just about any one particular guy; it's about the rest of the lineup. It's about everybody that's on this team, and that certainly proved out over the weekend.
Talking to Victor Rojas here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. So that whole Braden play, when I first saw it in real time, I'm like, oh man, I hope he didn't twist his ankle. And then you see the slow-mo and you're like, oh, this looks horrendous. We all
Yeah.
knew. So to kind of take me through, you're working at real time that entire experience.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of following the baseball all along, but I could see with where the baseball was at, where Braden was in relation to going toward third base, and I sensed a little hesitation, whether it was from the third base coach or Braden. There was a little bit of a pause there, and then the get going, and I'm following the ball in. Once he made the little cut to get around, you knew that there was something wrong, and especially when he stood up, tried to stand up, and obviously went back down. That was the biggest issue. Uh, it, it wasn't until I saw the replay where I realized it almost looked as he tripped himself, and in the effort to plant to move around the catcher, he clipped himself, and that's what kind of helped, I guess, get to the issue where we're at, which we still don't know what the issue is. Obviously, we can all draw our own conclusions. He's out for the year with a serious injury to the ankle, and there's been some speculation on Twitter about it. But clearly, just an awful injury to a terrific player who's going to be a top 10 pick this year in the draft, no matter what. But you can sense in that ballpark at that moment, like, oh my God, is this it? Are we
Yep.
done for the year? This is one of those, because it is that jarring. I mean, he's that much of an impactful player. And I go back to what Jace told us when we met with him on Friday before the series began. Everyone talks about the top three in the lineup, and rightfully so, right? Those three guys have just been stellar all season long, and nobody seems to give a whole hell of a lot of credit to the guys behind them in Burton, Appel, and Schott. And it turns out that those guys really had a huge impact. Veteran guys, grad students, they've been around it. They understand what's the dynamic of a super regional and kind of getting up to that moment. And they certainly stepped up. I mean, Jace literally told us, he's like, hey, man, if I strike out in the game, it's like, yeah, it sucks, but I'll head back to the dugout. I was like, good luck with BMO. And if BMO strikes out, it's like, good luck with, Bird behind you. And that was the mentality going into this series. And it certainly proved out with the guys, with both injuries, guys stepping up.
Victor, another thing that I found really interesting was with all that adversity they're facing, Oregon was playing A&M's game. They were the team mashing the home runs. It wasn't A&M.
Oh.
And then that seventh inning happened. So again, from a broadcaster's perspective, what are you thinking as this is kind of unfolding? We're seeing walk after walk and hits batter, and then the grand slam from Caden Kent.
Yeah, it was interesting in that because Oregon going into that series was a team that could hit the long ball, led by Walsh. They had a couple kids in there that could swing the bat as well, but they also struck out a lot. We didn't see the strikeouts though. I think I think they came into the weekend with the game plan of, listen, we know what the mantra is for A&M, right? From a pitching perspective, they like to fill up the zone. They love to pitch down the middle and let the pitches go east and west. As far as even Ryan Prager telling us that on Friday as well. I try to fill up the zone. I think Oregon took that game plan and just came out. And you know what? We're going to jump on pitches early, and it worked for them. It really did. Unfortunately, on the Oregon side, it was the pitching that kind of collapsed. I think there was a decision that Coach Wazakowski could have made on Saturday to keep things more in check had he taken Featherston, the freshman, out earlier. After, remember, he walked three guys to load the bases with nobody out. You could have taken him out after the first walk. You definitely could have taken him out on the second walk. But then you waited till the third walk was issued before going to Mercado, and Mercado ended up being his closer. Ended up really, really good the rest of the game. He stymied the Aggie offense, and so you could put a little thumbnail on that one to say, hey, you could have made a decision earlier in that situation. And then the same thing on Saturday, as that seventh inning was happening. Pardon me, on Sunday when that seventh inning was happening, it was the big kid with the big arm for Oregon was doing just fine, but all of a sudden he got into a situation where he was struggling as far as command was concerned, and walks started to occur. You guys had only two hits in that inning, two hits, the single and the grand slam, both by Caden Kent. You had all the walks plus the hit batter, and nobody was warming up in the bullpen. That's what I didn't understand. I mean, that's a game. If you're Oregon, it's Johnny Holstaff. Everybody's got to be available because there's no tomorrow if you don't win. And I just thought that it was a little bit of a passive kind of mentality on Oregon's part. And credit Aggie hitters because I know Schloss was a little bit frustrated in the earlier part of the game when we interviewed him, talking about guys making sure they swing at strikes and not getting outside of themselves, and bring the pitches into the zone. And credit to the Aggies offense that they did that. They weren't willing to chase things outside the zone, and things just started to snowball. And I think in that atmosphere, if you've never experienced it before, I don't care if you're an 18-year-old freshman or 19-year-old freshman or a 24-year-old grad student, it can be a little overwhelming, especially when you see that rock starting to roll downhill. And that's what it felt like in that seventh inning. You just knew it wasn't going to go Oregon's way. And then Caden's punctuation mark to right center field capped it off for sure.
Victor, I've got maroon goggles when I say this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I still feel that A&M, without Braden Montgomery and without Shane Stadeo, has a chance to win the College World Series. Obviously, it's going to be much harder than expected, but I think there's enough talent there to at least give them a fighting chance.
There's no doubt. There really is no doubt. I mean, when you've got a frontline starter in Ryan Prager, and he's going to bounce back. You've got a closer in Evan Oschenbeck who can go more than 2 innings, as we saw the other night. He was going to close it out. Schloss was not going to mess around with anybody else, just get it done. When you've got those two guys, you can figure out the rest. You've got enough arms. Hey, and don't forget, Chris Cortez on Saturday was, I mean, as good a performance as I've seen from a college pitcher step up. And the beauty of it is when we spoke to him after the game on Saturday, he was emotional about it because he felt like the atmosphere in that ballpark was electric to begin with, and he knew what he had done from one year to the next. He even said, last year he went like this, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And he's a much different guy today than he was 365 days ago, and it showed. And so I think that kind of gives you some positivity rolling into the tournament beginning on Friday. Look, you had a tough task at hand, an opening game against Florida. It's interesting that the College World Series is all ACC, SEC, and I'm sure there's some bragging rights and people are going to be talking a lot of smack. But A&M is still a really, really good team. I think they're the second best odds to win it. I think as I saw this morning, Tennessee obviously the favorite, but there's no question with this offense. And I think what Caden and the rest of the guys can do is feeding off of that Sunday game. There's nothing like having that confidence and that momentum. I've always said that confidence begets confidence. And I think you just start playing a little bit bigger and bigger. And with Caden, obviously, I grew up in a big league household. He's grown up in a big league household. He understands how to really, bring the game down and slow it down as much as possible. I think he's going to be just fine out there. And I think A&M is really going to be putting themselves in a position for a championship.
Victor, I want to close out with this. I'm glad you brought up the Major League household that you grew up in. Before the segment, we were going back and forth about our Cuban heritage. Can you kind of take me through your family's journey to the States and then your career, which I know recently was with Frisco, but you'd kind of been everywhere.
Yeah, I have been everywhere. I'm jack of all trades, master of none, as I like to say. Dad, mom, both from Cuba. They came here in the early '60s with everything going on the island, and for my dad, he was already signed in the Reds organization, so his professional playing career had already started. And I grew up in Kansas City, born in Miami. I was raised in Kansas City while Dad was playing with the Royals, and obviously baseball's been my entire life. I mean, I've loved it from the time I was born. I was fortunate enough to play some in college. I was fortunate enough to play professionally and coach. And then I got into the front office side, which is where I thought I wanted to go, and I did that for a number of years before at 31 years of age, said I want to try my hand at broadcasting. I'd never done it before, didn't go to school for it. And I got lucky. I did 2 years in independent ball and then 18 years in the big leagues. Left a couple of years ago because my wife was having some health issues, plus the opportunity to run the Frisco franchise for 2 seasons was great. And now I'm kind of in this kind of limbo purgatory, whatever you want to call it, of trying to figure out what I want to do next. I love calling college baseball. ESPN has given me the opportunity the last 2 seasons to call games. Last year, I called the Big 12 plus a regional. This year, I got the super regional as well, and I'm hooked. I mean, I sent the text yesterday when I was flying back to Scott Gustafson at ESPN and say, "Hey, man, if you need me full time, I'm ready to roll." Because I listen. I love big league baseball. There's no doubt about it. But college baseball, the amateur side is what we still now call amateur baseball. It's just electric. It really is. It's a different animal. There's still these unbelievable storylines because you never know when something's going to happen or pop. Chris Cortez stepping out of nowhere and giving you so much length and picking up a victory. Guys making plays in the outfield. Somebody goes down. Caden Kent stuffs up. Those storylines, you don't get those on a daily basis in professional baseball. In college baseball, you do. And I think it's just so much fun. I'm so thankful to having been a part of it and so grateful for everybody and really the hospitality that we witnessed in College Station at Blue Bell Park this weekend was just awesome. I told a buddy of mine, "Hey man, if they ever need anybody to work full time in College Station, sign me up. We'd go back to Texas in a heartbeat." That's how much fun it was. I even texted Schloss. I said, and because I know he's got a lot of juice, I just said, "Hey man, love what you're doing with the program, just in case." It's kind of a wink, wink, but it's good stuff going on down there. It's exciting. Plus, whatever the funds that they're going to put towards the facility, that they're going to make it even bigger, better, badder. I think it's awesome, and that place is going to be the standard for college baseball.
Victor, we're gonna have to stay in contact, my friend. This was excellent. I really do appreciate the few minutes, and let's do it again. All right.
Anytime. Enjoy your time in Florida.